Look, if you have ever felt that your house is full of things, but even so you feel tired, overwhelmed, and with the feeling that nothing truly rests, today I want to talk to you about the psychology that helped me stop accumulating nonsense at home, because it was not mess, it was something much deeper. And before starting with the first one, stay with me until you get to the fourth, because there I am going to reveal something terrible that almost all of us do without realizing it, and that is sabotaging our home. And if you stay until the end, I am going to share with you a secret, a gift, or a very special trick that is truly worth listening to. Look, I'm going to tell you something very personal. There was a moment, already several years ago, in which I felt that my house weighed on me. I don't know how to explain it better. It wasn't only physical tiredness, it was like a constant pressure in the chest. I would go into the kitchen and I would see full drawers, full shelves, bags kept just in case, empty jars, papers, things I hadn't used for years. And even so, I kept cleaning, organizing, arranging. I swear there were days when I finished cleaning and instead of feeling relief, I felt more exhaustion. And I would ask myself, but why? If supposedly my house is my refuge. I remember a very clear afternoon. I was alone in silence, and I opened a closet that I almost never opened. And there it was. A mix of things kept out of guilt, out of fear, out of memories, out of habit. Things that didn't make me happy, things that I didn't even remember that I had. And in that moment, I swear my eyes filled with tears. Because I understood something very strong. I was not accumulating things, I was accumulating unresolved emotions. And that's where this whole process started. The first thing that helped me, and that truly was like a soft but very deep blow, was realizing that many times we don't accumulate out of usefulness, we accumulate out of fear. That thought so automatic that comes out on its own. This could be useful someday. Ah, how many times I said it without thinking. I said it almost like a reflex, as if it were an unquestionable truth. And the curious thing is that that someday almost never arrived. The thing stayed there for years, intact, taking up space, but above all taking up headspace. When I began to look at that thought more calmly, without judging myself, I realized something that stirred me inside. That fear was not practical, it was emotional. It wasn't that I really needed that object, it was the fear of not having, of falling short, of depending on others, of going through need. And that fear lives very deep in us, especially after 50. Because we come from generations where nothing was thrown away, where bags were kept, jars, scraps, buttons, everything just in case. And that wasn't because we were messy, it was because there were hard times, because we were taught that throwing away was a sin, that keeping was synonymous with responsibility. But nobody taught us that that fear, when it stays to live in the house, starts to weigh on us. Without realizing it, it fills the drawers, the closets, the shelves, and it also fills the head. I realized that many times I would open a drawer and I was already tired. Not because of what I was going to take out, but because of everything I saw. It was like an invisible list of pending things. I have to organize this, I haven't used this, I should check this someday. And that someday turns into a constant burden. There was a moment when I started doing something very simple, almost without realizing it. Every time I took an object and thought this can be useful, I would stop 1 second longer. I would breathe. And I would ask myself a very honest, very intimate question. Does this give me tranquility? Or does it generate one more worry for me? And many times the answer surprised me. Because there were things I didn't use, that I didn't need, but that still demanded mental energy from me just by existing. They demanded that I remember them, take care of them, move them, clean them, justify why they were still there. And there I understood something very important. Not everything that can be useful is useful for my peace. Not everything that I could need someday deserves to be today in my life. Because each object that we keep out of fear is like a small reminder of distrust toward the future. It is like telling ourselves, I don't trust that I will know how to solve it when the moment comes. And that weighs. I started to choose to trust more in myself, in my capacity, in my experience. I started to tell myself, if someday I need it, I will see how I solve it. And that simple idea gave me an enormous freedom. Letting go from there was not painful, it was relieving. Because I was not throwing away things, I was letting go of fear. I was stopping living in scarcity mode to start living in calm mode. And little by little, without rush, My house started to feel lighter. But the most important thing is that I also started to feel lighter inside. The second thing that completely changed my way of seeing accumulation was accepting, with a lot of honesty, that a big part of what we keep, we don't do it out of need. We do it out of guilt. Silent guilt, the kind you don't notice, but that weighs. Guilt for having spent money, guilt for not having chosen well, guilt for gifts we didn't like, guilt for things that are still good. Ah, that phrase. How many times we say it almost to convince ourselves. I realized that I had clothes kept for years. Clothes even with tags. And I didn't wear them, they weren't comfortable on me, they didn't represent me, but there they were. Why? Because it cost a lot. Because at that time it was an important purchase. And deep down, letting it go made me feel that I was admitting a mistake. And that hurts. Nobody taught us to make mistakes softly. They taught us to endure, to justify, to carry. It also happened to me with gifts. Things that someone gave me with affection, but that I never used. And there another guilt appeared, even deeper. The guilt of feeling ungrateful. I would look at that object and I didn't see what it was, I saw the person, I saw the intention, I saw the story. And then I kept it, not out of love, but out of emotional obligation. And that, with time, becomes heavy. Because every time you see it, it doesn't give you joy, it gives you a little sting. When I began to observe this more calmly, without scolding myself, I understood something that changed my outlook. Guilt should not decide how I live today. Guilt speaks about the past. And I live in the present. My house is the place where I rest now, where I walk now, where I breathe now. It is not a museum of past decisions. It is not a warehouse of mistakes, nor an altar of sacrifices. It is my home. And my home should take care of me. The day I let something go from that place, from that understanding, I felt something very physical. I'm telling you like this, literally. I breathed deeper. My shoulders dropped. I felt less pressure in my chest. And I understood that I was not throwing away an object. I was forgiving myself. Forgiving myself for having bought something that didn't turn out, for not having said no to a gift, for having changed tastes, body, stage. Because we change. And it's fine. And our houses also have the right to change with us. When I stopped looking at things as proofs of what I was, and I began to look at them as companions of what I am today, everything became lighter. And that lightness, that has no price. The third thing, this was very sensitive for me. Because it's not about drawers or boxes, it's about the heart. The third thing was realizing that many times we accumulate because we confuse memories with objects. And I know this happens to so many. Because you look at a little thing and immediately you don't see the little thing, you see the whole scene. You see the person. You see the moment. You see a smell, a song, an era. And then we think, without saying it out loud, if I let this go, I let go of that little piece of my life. As if the memory were stuck to the object with glue. I had drawers full of small things. Folded papers, cards, clippings, loose photos, a dried flower in a little bag, a ribbon, a napkin from a place I went to once. You don't know. And the strongest thing is that I kept them as if they were treasures, but in practice, I didn't even look at them. They were there, hidden, closed, kept at the bottom. And that made me think something very honest. If they really were so important to me, why do I have them buried as if they were trash? Why is my treasure in a dark drawer, mixed with 1,000 things? And that's when I understood that many times we don't keep things to remember. We keep things to not feel. We keep things to avoid grief. We keep things to not face nostalgia. We keep things to not accept that a stage ended. Because there are objects that are not only beautiful memories, they are doors to emotions we don't want to open. And a part of us says, better I keep it and I don't touch it, as if with that we controlled sadness. But the truth, the sadness is still there, only hidden, just like the box. I remember perfectly the day I sat on the floor, like that, literally, with a box in front of me. And I told myself, today I'm going to go through this. And I started taking things out. And I swear, it was like seeing my life in little pieces. A little paper with a letter, a birthday card with a phrase that marked me, an old photo where I was another person. And there I stayed still for a while. Because sometimes you look at a photo and you don't only see the image. You see yourself in that time. And that can be lovely, but it also can hurt. There were things that made me smile. Like, look at this. How sweet I was, how innocent. And there were others that tightened my throat, because they reminded me of someone who is no longer here, or a stage where I was tired or sad or enduring too much. And then a tear came out, and then another. And I didn't feel ridiculous. I felt human, because I was not organizing, I was processing. And it was there where I made a very important change, very gentle but powerful. Instead of asking myself, do I keep this or do I throw it away? I began to ask myself, what memory do I truly want to honor, and which one am I keeping out of fear? Because it's not the same. Honoring a memory is looking at it with love, with presence. But keeping it out of fear is like imprisoning it. It is like saying, this is not touched, this is hidden, this is kept just in case. Just in case what? Just in case I forget? My friend, one does not forget what truly marked her. That lives in the body, in the soul, in the ways of thinking, in how you look at your children, in how you cook, in how you hug. So I started choosing consciously. And this was very emotional. There were long pauses, those where you stay looking at something and your mind goes far away and comes back. There were sighs. There were soft little laughs too, because I found things that I said, but what was this, my God, look at what I kept. Like meaningless little papers, wrappers, broken things. And there I realized something that gave me a lot of peace. I was not protecting memories. I was protecting the feeling of not letting go. It was like an emotional habit. And look, I'll tell you something very simple that helped me. I gave myself permission to keep few memories, but the ones that truly moved me. Not the ones that demanded guilt or eternal sadness from me. I began to choose as if I were creating a small altar of my history, but a beautiful one, a kind one. For example, if a card made me feel love, gratitude, tenderness, that one, yes. But if it was something that left me trapped in why did this happen, why did she leave, why wasn't I enough? There I understood that that wasn't a memory, it was a wound. And a wound is not healed by keeping an object. It is healed with time, with affection, with acceptance. I also understood something that was liberating. The memory doesn't go away if you let go of the thing. I promise you. The memory is not in the object, it is in you. The object is only a trigger. And sometimes not even a good trigger. Because there are things we keep and we never look at again. So, what are we really protecting? Not the memory. We are protecting the idea that we should preserve everything. And that is impossible. Life doesn't fit in a drawer. And now, here comes the fourth. And I'm going to speak to you with my heart, because this was uncomfortable to accept. Very uncomfortable. The fourth thing was realizing that many times we accumulate not because we are messy, nor because we are sentimental, but because deep down, we believe that our value is in how much we do and how much we endure. Yes, that's strong. And saying it out loud already tightened my chest the first time. I realized something that left me frozen. My house was difficult, full, complicated to maintain. There was always something to organize, something to clean, something to arrange better. And I lived tired. But at the same time, there was a part of me that felt useful in that tiredness. As if exhaustion were a silent proof that I was fulfilling. Fulfilling as a woman, as a homemaker, as the pillar of the family. And that is very deep. Without realizing it, I would tell myself inside, the more I do, the more I'm worth. If the house demands me, then I am necessary. If everything depends on me, then I matter. And saying that today makes me a little sad, because how many of us grew up with that idea? They taught us that the good woman is the one who sacrifices, the one who doesn't complain, the one who endures. The one who holds everything even if she is broken inside. And nobody told us that that also tires the soul. When I realized this, I stayed silent for a long while. Those uncomfortable silences where you can't keep running. I thought about how many times we normalize exhaustion. How many times we said it's normal, that's life, what can we do? I thought about how we turned tiredness into identity, as if resting were a luxury and not a right. And there I understood something that shook me. I was not only accumulating things. I was accumulating unnecessary responsibilities to feel valuable. Each extra thing was one more task. Each kept object was something to clean, move, organize, think about. It was as if my house were constantly reminding me that I had to do more. And I obeyed, without questioning it. But the truth, and this truth is hard to look at, we are not worth more for living tired. We are not better women for holding houses that wear us down. We are not stronger for never stopping. That is not strength, that is survival. And I no longer wanted to survive, I wanted to live. I wanted to walk through my house without feeling that I owed it something. I wanted to sit down without guilt. I wanted to enter a room and feel calm, not a mental list of pending things. Letting go of things in that moment was much more than clearing spaces. It was letting go of a very old inner demand. It was telling myself, I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to show that I'm capable by enduring more than I should. My value is not in how much I clean, how much I organize, or how much I sacrifice. My value is in who I am, even when I rest. Even when I say enough. And I'll tell you something else. When I started to let go from that awareness, something very curious happened. The house became easier. But I also became kinder to myself. I began to treat myself with the same consideration I always had for others. And that was a before and after. Because letting go of things was, deep down, letting go of the idea that my tiredness was mandatory. And it isn't. Your house can support you, not demand you. You can rest without feeling guilt. And even though at first it's scary, because one asks, and if I don't do so much anymore, am I still worth it? The answer is yes. You are still worth it. Even more. Because now you are taking care of yourself. And look, if all of this is resonating with you a little, if any phrase made noise inside you, I want to tell you something with a lot of affection. Stay here with me. And if you feel like it, subscribe, give the video a like, and tell me in the comments. What thing do you feel weighs on you the most in your house today? Not to judge you, but to talk, to feel accompanied. Here we are many going through the same. The fifth thing that helped me was realizing something that, when I understood it, made a lot of sense to me. The mess is not always physical. Many times it is mental. And I'm not saying this as a pretty phrase, I'm saying it because I lived it. I started observing myself with more honesty, and I noticed a very clear pattern. When my head was saturated, my house reflected it. It was almost immediate. I was worried, restless, with 1,000 things spinning in my mind. And suddenly I would keep more. I would buy more. I would accept more things. As if filling the house were a way of covering what was happening inside. There were days when I wasn't well, and without realizing it I would start organizing, moving things, keeping whatever I found. Not to enjoy it, but to distract myself. As if the external noise helped silence the internal noise. And other times, when I was emotionally tired, it was hard for me to say no. Someone gave me something and I accepted it even though I didn't need it. I saw a deal and I bought even though I wasn't going to use it. Not because I needed it, but because my head was looking for relief. And the strongest thing was realizing that it wasn't a lack of willpower, it was saturation. When someone is mentally exhausted, she makes more impulsive decisions. She keeps things out of inertia. She accepts out of commitment. She buys out of anxiety. And then the weight comes. Because each new thing enters the house, but it also enters the invisible list of, I have to see what I do with this. And that list never ends. There was a moment when I stopped asking myself, why is my house like this? And I started asking myself, how am I? And that question changed everything. Because when I began to take care of my thoughts, my time, my silences, something started to settle on its own. I began to respect my pauses. To not fill my schedule out of habit. To stay in silence without feeling guilt. To not answer everything immediately. To not always run. And in a very natural way, almost without realizing it, I stopped accumulating. It was not a forced decision. It was not from today on I don't buy anymore. No. I simply didn't need it anymore. My head was calmer, and the house stopped being a place to unload tension. It was as if the body and the house had agreed. As if both said, we don't need so much noise anymore. I realized that when my mind was lighter, I could look at an object with clarity. I no longer looked at it from anxiety, but from calm. And from calm, many things lose importance. Because not everything that crosses our path needs to stay. Not everything they offer us do we have to accept. Not everything we buy is going to give us peace. The sixth thing was a very big change of perspective for me, although at first it seemed like something simple. I stopped thinking about organizing everything, and I started thinking about living better. And that difference changes everything. Before I organized to comply, so that the house looked good, so that nobody could say anything, to feel that I was doing what was expected of me. And being honest, many times I organized in a hurry, with tension, with that feeling of this never ends. I realized that I organized almost like a moral obligation, as if having the house spotless were proof that I was a good homemaker. And that makes one organize from demand, not from care. You move things, arrange quickly, store without thinking, only so that it looks good on the outside. But inside one is still just as tired. With time, I started to ask myself something different. Instead of, how do I leave this perfect? I started to ask myself, what do I need to feel better here? And that question is much kinder. Because it is no longer about complying with an image, it is about caring for the body, the energy, the mood. I started organizing to rest, to move calmly, to not trip over unnecessary things, to not open a drawer and feel like everything is coming down on me. For example, I started leaving spaces more cleared, not because it looked pretty, but because it gave me visual peace. I started keeping only what I really used, so I wouldn't have to search so much. I started thinking about how I walked through the house, about what bothered me, about what made me sigh with tiredness. And little by little, the house adapted to me, not the other way around. And something very important changed inside me. Organizing stopped being a fight. It stopped being an endless race. It was no longer I have to, it was I want to feel better. And when the intention changes, the body feels it. The hands move differently. The head is calmer. There is no longer anger, nor rush, nor that constant pressure to do everything perfect. I realized that organizing like that is an act of self-affection. It is telling yourself, I deserve a space that takes care of me. Not one that demands me, not one that judges me, not one that makes me feel insufficient. And that is very powerful, especially at our age, when we have already gone through so much, when we have already held up so many things. Now, when I organize, I do it gently. I move more slowly. I choose better. And if one day I don't feel like it, I don't punish myself. Because I am no longer organizing to prove anything. I am organizing to live better. And that intention is noticed in the air of the house. It is felt. And it is also felt in oneself. The seventh thing was accepting something that, although it sounds simple, completely changed the way I relate to my house and to myself. Accepting that letting go is not a domestic task. It is an emotional process. And that was an enormous relief. Because for a long time I treated myself as if letting go were only a matter of willpower. As if one day I had to get up determined, throw everything away and that's it. And it doesn't work like that. Not for us. Not after so many years, so many stories, so much lived. I understood that there are days when one can let go of a lot. Days when the body is light, the head clear, the mood stronger. And on those days one advances, feels good, even gets surprised at how easy it turns out. But there are also other days. Days when one takes a thing, looks at it and can't. And before that frustrated me. I would tell myself how exaggerated. Why is it so hard for me? I should be able to. Not today. Today I understand that those days are also part of the process. And they are fine. Stopping demanding perfection from myself was an enormous gift. I came with that idea very embedded. Either I do it well or I don't do it. Either I let go of everything or I let go of nothing. And that rigidity only generates more guilt, more tiredness, more abandonment of the process. When I allowed it to be honest, everything changed. Honest with what I felt. Honest with my timing. Honest with my limits. There were days when I let go of a single thing. One. And it was enough. Because I didn't do it from obligation, I did it from awareness. I also understood that letting go stirs up old emotions. Sometimes it's not the thing that is hard, it's what it represents. There are objects that carry tiredness, sacrifice, hard stages. And pretending to let go of that fast is like pretending to close a wound without looking at it. I gave myself permission to go slow, to stop, to sit, to say, not today. And far from going backward, I moved forward more. With time, I started to feel something very different in my house. It was no longer the objective to have less just to have less. It was not about an empty house, nor perfect, nor magazine-like. It was about a house that didn't shout at me, that didn't demand me, that didn't make me feel that I was always in debt. A house where I could walk without tension, where I could sit without guilt, where I could breathe. And that peace did not come from letting go fast, it came from letting go with respect. Respect for my history, for my emotions, for the woman I was and the one I am now. Letting go stopped being a goal and became a dialogue with myself. Sometimes I move forward, sometimes I rest. And it's fine, because I'm not running a race. I'm taking care of my life. And today I can say it with tranquility. When you stop demanding perfection from yourself, peace appears. And when peace appears, letting go doesn't hurt as much anymore. Because you no longer do it to comply, you do it to be better. And that, at this point in life, is more than enough. And now, as I promised you, I'm going to share that secret with you. That little gift that for me was a before and after. I started doing something very simple. Every time I doubted whether to keep something or not, I asked myself this question in a low voice, almost like a whisper: does this take care of me, or does it expect me to take care of it? And if the answer was that I had to take care of it, maintain it, move it, organize it, think about it, then it didn't stay. Because my house is to take care of me, not the other way around. And I swear that question changed my life. And I want to close this space speaking to you straight to the heart. You are not failing. You are not messy. You are not exaggerated. You are tired, and you deserve relief. You deserve a home that hugs you, that supports you, that gives you calm. Step by step, without guilt, without rush, you can build it. And here I am, talking with you, reminding you that you are not alone. Your well-being matters. Much more than what they taught us to believe.